Howdy y'all, I'm Listener Games and I've been making games for a little over 2 years now. I, like most of you, probably started playing games at a young age and just fell in love with everything about them. Then I found out about level editors and scenario editors in games like Age of Empires and Roller Coaster Tycoon, and knew I would want to make a game. However, once I learned what goes into making games, I decided that was for someone more intelligent than I, and opted to make just fat beats instead. Later on, I did try things like Unity and Unreal Engine, but those didn't work for me, and I had given up until I found Devlog.
Say that I never coded anything before I started making games.
That was game changing, so I went ahead, got Construct 3, and got to work. I was hooked. I started watching tutorials from Xanderwood and Fusel CC and drummed up the courage to make my own game. I began work on my first ever game, Post-Apocalypse Ambulance Service. I had some pretty grandiose ideas for this, but I was using the free version, so I had to lower my scope a bit. But yeah, you were going to be able to unlock new ambulances and new weapons for the top of your ambulance. There was going to be levels with progressing difficulty, but as you can see, that didn't happen. I was, however, able to get enemies that followed you. I had a working health bar. I didn't know how to make it like follow the camera, so it just stays at the top of the screen. You kind of have to go up there if you want to know what your health is. And it also had a functioning gameplay loop. You had to go pick up a guy who had been injured and take him back to your base. There was also this cannon on the top of your vehicle that followed your mouse. Had particle effects. I couldn't figure out at the time how to make the enemies turn in the direction they were actually walking. But again, this was my first real game. I wasn't following a tutorial, and it was the free version of Construct, so I only had like 25 or 40 events or whatever. Yeah, I'm still trying to raise that $16. Next was a little game I called Was Wall. The idea was that you was a wall and you gained sentience. I was trying to add new features any chance I got. And so with this, when you were up against a wall and not moving, an enemy thought that you were the wall yet again. This game also had a limited amount of ammo, and I created ammo pickups. And for those ammo pickups, I had to learn the rotate function. I was initially going to have breakable walls that you would need to use a special kind of ammo to break through. However, I ran out of events for that. Now, the way that I made the AI think that you were a wall again was just that they had a line of sight, and it went to 0 if you were touching a wall and not moving. And then when you started moving again, they got their line of sight back. This was also the first game I added sound to. It had music, so I'll play that for a second. At this point, I'd really gotten a hankering for the idea of destructible walls, so I made this game Blew the Coop, where you were a chicken who laid explosive eggs, which I learned later already existed as a game. I tried to find some video of it, and I can't find it anywhere. This is also my first platformer game, which is where I learned that I'm not very good at level design. All these cages have invisible walls that will get destroyed whenever they get touched by an egg. I made that frying pan that will hurt you when you get hit, and your health shows on the chicken. You start off with 3 health. At 3, you're fully feathered. At 2, you've lost a little bit of feathers. And at 1, you are completely plucked. Look at naked little chicken. There were 7 levels. Each of them have a chicken coin hidden somewhere within the level. If you were to collect all 7, you will get something cool at the end. I made the player's hitbox exactly the shape of the chicken, so you can hang on ledges by your beak, which was not intended, but is pretty funny. One thing that I can't stress enough is how inept I am with computers, which is why Construct has been such a saving grace for me. Like I mentioned before, I tried Unity and Unreal, and not only was 3D modeling impossible for me, because, again, cannot use computers to save my life, but I specifically remember after getting Unreal Engine following tutorials for over 8 hours one day, and not on coding, but on the blueprint. And I barely had a 2D platforming like character, and that was it. And even more importantly than that, I had no idea how I'd done it. So Construct for someone like me is the perfect engine. I even tried to learn Gdevelop recently, which is another no-code engine, and it just didn't click with me. Alright, anyway, enough with this chicken. One thing I think is very important, especially if you're first learning, but just in general, is to every project learn something new. With Post-Apocalypse Ambulance Service, pretty much everything I did was new. With WasWall, it was a lot of line of sight stuff, and learning how to use variables, like with the ammo pickups. With Blue the Coop, I reinforced my knowledge of global variables with the chicken coins, as well as learned about explosions and destructible walls, which leads me to this game, Keybringer, the bringer of keys, where I'd learned about different enemy types, like the patrolling enemies, those little green guys, and the turret enemies, the little red guys, but then also about like an object of importance, the key. You have to have the key on your person in order to finish out the level, but also the key makes you jump less high and slows you down. And there were tons of failures along the way. Here was a racing game I tried to learn how to make, which it was going okay, but it just wasn't ever gonna be able to be a complete game. Here I was trying to make a like Tetris with guns kind of game, and then I just got really off track with how to make this. But in these failures I gained a lot of experience with, like, this was like physics objects, which I'd never really messed with, and just with game development, everything is a learning experience. Now at this time I was working at a toilet paper factory, and I thought the whole place kind of felt like a weird game. So I wanted to make a game about that, and I still have all this stuff for this. I think it could still be a fun little like mobile game. But even with this, there's a whole lot of things I still need to learn if I ever want to make this game possible. The idea is that every single machine could go down, and everything has like a mini game for it. There'd be a mini game for putting new toilet papers on the winders back there. There'd be a mini game for if the saw broke down. I even made this fun little logo for it, but I never got around to finishing this one. I just mainly had a lot of fun making all the art for it and everything. But from here, I made probably the most important decision I'd made making video games, and that was joining my first game jam. The idea for it was so cool. It was essentially to take an older game, deconstruct it, and remake it using some of the mechanics. And the game was Missile Command. And as you can see here, it just breaks down the main mechanics of the game, and you had to recreate the game with a different idea. And at the time, I was just learning about endless runners, which led me to my first game jam game, Bury Me in the Combat Zone. You were controlling this truck back here, and you had to save your 3 little soldiers that had to roam on foot. And they could pick up weapons. There was various enemy types. There was the ones with guns, there was landmines, and there were bombs that would come in from overhead. And some of the ones with guns would actually drop a gun, allowing for your people to actually have a way to defend themselves, which they were not very good at defending themselves. Now, what was awesome about this is that I actually won this game jam. There are 2 schools of thought as to why I won. Either A, I had actually created the perfect game, or B, there were 2 of us, and he was a lot nicer when it came to scoring than I was. I went with 1, and with this confidence, I was thrusted into the world of making game jam games. Which, if you're ever worried about wanting to make game jam games, but you're nervous about it or whatever, just do it. It is such a cool experience. Howdy y'all, I'm Listener Games, and I'm working on a new project in Construct 3 I'm calling Mobcore. Up to this point, I'd only made games that took maybe a day or a week or so to make. But I had this idea, and I knew it was going to be a long-term project, and I just personally really wanted to document the progress of this. And so, following suit with what I've seen other game developers do, I started a channel and started posting devlogs. And there was an immediate outpour of support, from people just telling me things that they liked to great suggestions that actually made their way into the game. And after admittedly quite a bit longer than I expected, I had a finished product that I could be very proud of. And something even wilder happened. Someone actually donated money to it, which I just didn't expect that to happen. I don't really know what I thought was going to happen with this game, but I thought maybe I'd get a handful of plays and that would be about it. But you wouldn't believe the excitement I got when I saw that. It's probably been the single most validating moment I've had since starting game development. For somebody to have played my game and felt the need to donate to express that they enjoyed what I had created, it's just insane. I've done a lot of growing since starting game development, and I have no intention on stopping. And it's very easy to find one of these channels and they're like, oh, I've been making games for a year, and their games are far beyond what you believed even a AAA title could come up with in that time frame. But I don't really try to look at that. I know I haven't come as far as many of my peers, but I don't really believe that's what it's about. I love the games I've created, and I enjoyed every moment I've spent creating them. So this has been my journey of 2 years learning game dev, and I'm excited to see where these next 2 years might lead. And I really hope to see all of y'all along the way.